She needs a date to her best friend's gala. He wants to settle down. Can they get past their hang-ups to see that they should be together? This is the premise of The Accidental Swipe by me, Y.M. Nelson. This steamy contemporary romance features Jason and Fortune, two people who've given up on love and are urged to use an online dating app to find someone. When they find each other, the attraction is undeniable, but their jaded outlooks on love based on past emotional hurt may keep them from getting together. The Accidental Swipe releases on July 25th, 2023. Go to ymnelson.com for all of the latest details. This is the Nerdy Romantics Podcast, and I'm your host, Y.M. Nelson. This episode starts a series that I'm calling Who Gets an HEA? And it will showcase or feature romance books where the main character is either the unconventional look for a mainstream romance or more so societally marginalized. So who deserves an HEA? Well, I feel everyone who wants one should have one. You shouldn't have to conform to certain beauty standards or age limits or ethnic backgrounds in order to be the star of your own romance. And today's episode specifically is going to focus on One to Watch by Kate Stayman-London. This romantic fiction novel has a plus-size heroine. And while I wanted to laud the story as one that shows that plus-size women do deserve and should get that HEA, my guest host think that more could have been done. So, spoiler warning on this one. While we tried to stay away from most of the spoilers because one of our guests has not finished the book at the moment, we do mention a few things that would be considered spoilers. So if you want to read this one and don't want to be spoiled, pause here, take your time to read One to Watch, and come back and let's discuss. Okay, so we are here with our Nerdy Romantics, Pam, Marcie, and Staci, and we are talking today about One to Watch. Before we totally get into this discussion, which we were about to get into before I started recording, briefly tell me, for everybody, if you could think of the one book last year that really stood out to you that you liked, or just tell me the one book that you're reading now that you really like. Let's start with Staci.
And we would have to start with me on this topic. Well, hello everyone. This is Staci, and I'm gonna have to say there's nothing I'm really reading right now that's really captured my attention. And last year, out of the books I've read last year, yeah, you had to come out with nothing. I could have had that question earlier. I don't really recall a book that really stuck with me. Even last year, there's like books I've read that were, okay, this is good, but nothing that was like, oh my God. No, the one. I have to say the one then. If that was for last year, that I really enjoyed and just, it kept my attention the whole time, would have been the one. And I was thinking more like books I've read, but I did it as an audible, audio book. Before that, another Audible book would have been De-Evolution. Those two yeah, really kept my interest for the whole entire time I was listening to those. Especially De-Evolution. That one really, really caught my interest.
Okay.
So that's has nothing to do with nerdy. Was nerdy, I guess, but not romantic in the sense of the word for that particular book.
Well, this is essentially a book chat. So we're all about books here. We don't have to necessarily be right in nerdy romantics with what we are reading right at the moment. Of course, the book that we are talking about today, One to Watch, is a romance. So whatever you read, hey, we're just reading lovers here. Marcie, what about you? Any favorite books from last year, or maybe something you're reading now that you like?
Okay, so hi everybody, it's Marcie, and I would have to say that the book that intrigued me the most in 2021 was The Society of Intellectual Beings by Iris Bowling. And I say that because I've been a fan of hers. I've talked about her a few times. I've been a fan of her work from the very beginning with her Heart series, but this one actually is a departure that kind of reminded me of something in the one kind of genre where she moved from typical like urban romance to something that had a little bit more edge and a bit more sci-fi to it. It intrigued me because I like to see authors that I love play in different genres and expand their reach. And so that did that for me.
Yeah, that is kind of a departure from at least from what I know of her as. She's like a romance author to me. I think a couple in the genre are doing a little bit of a departure as well, and doing it not just under pen names, but doing it under their names, which is, I think it's kind of cool.
Me too.
Yeah. Pam, what about you? What did you read last year that you really liked? Or something that you may be reading now that you really liked?
Look, I guess since I read the one toward the end of the year, that was a neat one. One that I kind of started, but I need to pick back up because I was going into more of a self-help kind of thing, was Iyanla Vanzant's Get Over It, which is just talking about in terms of healing from the hard stuff we deal with in life. My sisters and I were getting together to read that one. So that's one we have to finish. And that's been pretty awesome. And then I would say just one I'm thinking about getting into. There was a book that I think it was called The Secret Lives of the Four Wives, which is really a book about, supposed to be kind of a hilarious type book, but also about a life in polygamy. So, and it was in the setting of Nigeria. I'll let you know how that one goes. I'm interested in what that might look like. Just something that's kind of off the beaten path of what I would normally read.
Right. Oh yeah, we'd like to know what that becomes. Yes. But for now, we're going to talk One to Watch, and we're going to kind of get into this. I know we have some kind of strong opinions already about this one. In general, when I said, hey, you guys, you want to read One to Watch? A couple of you had it on your TBR, you want to read it list. And once you got into it, what did you think about it?
This is Marcie, and I'm just going to say, it was, when you mentioned the name, I had seen it I'm in a lot of book groups on Facebook, so it had come up in my feed. It really was in my future reads list on Kindle, waiting for me to pick it up. So when you brought it up, I was like, oh, cool. The premise was outstanding. I had such high hopes. I literally read the prologue and was like, oh, well.
Yeah.
So this is where we're starting. And I had two minds at that point. One was, maybe she's going to prove me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess the other 50% was like, or she's just gonna prove me right. And unfortunately, I don't know if this is the time to mention it, but I feel like
It's okay.
I feel like she proved me right. I had expected and hoped for so much more out of the main character, out of the premise, out of all the opportunity there to really make this story something worth reading. The cover had me hooked, but the actuality of the words themselves, I was not thrilled. I give it Is this when I rate it or do I do that?
You know what? Go ahead and do what you like. Rate it now if you want.
I honestly, and I give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but this is like a 1-star book for me.
you.
I would never recommend this book to another soul.
Okay. Staci, Pam, are we in agreement of this? What are we thinking?
Like at this point, and again, I will preface that I have not finished the book, so I'm halfway through.
That's okay.
I'm not gonna give that a 1. I'm not gonna say it's a 1 thing, and I'm coming from a different point of view. When I look at it or I read the book, I did have higher expectations of it, but a lot of it when I was reading kind of was cringeworthy, and possibly because for me, the whole premise of going on a reality show, I don't even like reality television in real life. So, and I thought a lot of stuff that she was doing, and I guess we haven't gone over into anything like specific parts of it, but the beginning of it, when she was in Paris and how she felt like, just not seen and all that. Some of the things I can relate to, not going to Paris and not being seen, that kind of thing. But I feel like her whole, to me, it's like one of those, she's overweight and she has low self-esteem. And I can relate to it. I'm consider myself a low self-esteem in recovery. Because I think if you had low self-esteem at some point, you kind of always have it. It's just, you're always in recovery. And because of that, I try to make sure that I'm around positive people. And I don't do a lot of negative self-talk. And I also don't hang around people who do negative self-talk. And I make it a point that if I have to be around those kind of people, I tell them, like, don't do that. Because I'm not trying to go back down that kind of road. In that case, I can't understand, but then how she changes her life around. I mean, I really felt like, okay, I can understand what she's going through, some of the things she was talking about and changing her life and how certain, for her, it was that cape. And I know we're talking, I'm not sure how far you want us to go to, but for her, it was that cape.
Okay.
Find that cape was her, this is my change. And for me, it wasn't a cape. It was going to college with y'all, really, who made a change for me for the better. As in, I was like, if it fits, I'll wear it, kind of a thing. Not really going into finding stuff that I really felt attractive in. And, I guess daughters kind of follow their mothers when they come to that. And my mother is not plus size and she doesn't like to shop. So if you have someone who's not plus size and doesn't shop, and I wasn't a person that liked to shop, but I had no, like, where can I go to shop? And it was like, Catherine Starr shop. The old people, the people I knew with plus size were older. And it's like, this is it. We went to college and I met y'all, and it was just different women of different sizes. And regardless of what size y'all, you should be able to feel pretty in your stuff and all that. So that made a change for me. And I could see that for her as well. But then we got into the whole, I'm going to go on a reality show. And I just, and not just the reality show, what was his name? Ray. That Ray person.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, hung up on this one guy who is at least at this point, has never committed. Just kind of, to me, is leading her on twice in her life that he has done that, and she lets him. And then that whole, so to get over him, she goes on a reality show, and it's like, did you really think about that? Because the thing, she's like, I can't believe it's like this. It's like, have you not watched reality TV at all?
Right, exactly.
Because, by the point where I am now, I will give it a solid. Then I guess middle row a 3. It can go either way. It's like I'm cringing at certain things, but we'll see if this can get over the hump, and it can go.
It does not.
Oh my gosh.
Well, at this point, I'm gonna give it a 3. It's not like I would recommend it to anybody, but I wouldn't necessarily. I'm at 3 at this point. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say right now.
All right.
Somebody else can talk for a minute.
I was gonna try to jump in. As I was sitting here, please. I was sitting here laughing. Some of the things that Staci was talking about. I guess because I watch reality shows, I'm not the biggest fan, but there's certain ones I watch, like the Real Housewives. I do follow some of those. And I did watch the last season of that Bachelorette, and then the season before that, and then that lady's not even with that guy anymore. But I guess my expectations when I'm dealing with reality shows, I don't expect a whole lot. I just expect a lot of drama, which so far in the book has been doing that. Some stuff that's probably not real, that's probably scripted, kind of with the producers and stuff, which we kind of saw that too was happening. In the beginning, because of the things she had gone through, her self-esteem was kind of somewhat down. She got on the show, this reality show, and I guess her plan in her mind was to not hook up with anybody. So really, she was just going to, I think the way they put it was, she was just kind of going to beef up her career of sorts. Yeah, that may have happened. I don't think it really did, but it also, some of the stuff that she had been dealing with was like in her face, and I don't think she really truly was able to deal with some of those things. I was thinking about one area where I think she was taking one of the guys off in terms of, I forgot what you call it, when you decide you don't want them and you take them off the show, just how rude. And I think that was Jefferson, how rude he was to her.
Yes.
And if you go back to how she was in the beginning in terms of her self-esteem, I mean, if she had heard that at the beginning, it probably would have changed the way the whole thing kind of went over. I think in some way she was trying to hold on and have this hard shell to kind of get through the series or the actual show. But to me, it was just heartbreaking just to hear for that man to say what he did about her. Nobody's really interested in you. I'm assuming that a lot of people will feel like that, especially, if are normally just not seen, or you're seen as not being pretty, or you're not seen as these people that we see on reality shows, the young, the thin, well, some of them are older, but thin, and the long hair, and the makeup, and all of these things, the bikini that looks good, in people's minds, all of these different things that we're seeing. But I think inside she's still having some issues just dealing with her own self-esteem in the midst of all of this, which I would myself. So I don't know. I kind of feel like this is reality TV. This is what happens, to be honest. I just wish that maybe she could have dealt with some of the other issues that she was dealing with within the story. I don't think she really could we didn't tap into all of those things. So I don't know if I would read the next story, but but at the same time, I thought it was, some of it was quite hilarious, because to me, when we watch reality TV, this is what we see, and it's crazy.
And I guess that's why I didn't like that part. I'm always cringing when I watch any kind of reality TV, and that's like American Idol, The Voice, those kind of things. And I really have never watched a Bachelorette or The Bachelor ever, but I know enough about them to know, like, all that stuff I just find really cringeworthy. And it was hard for me to get into it, because every time I do it, I'm just cringing like it was really happening. It's like, oh, ugh. And at this point, I would have turned it to a different station. Yeah. And literally, I was kind of doing that, like, okay, we're going to watch this TV for a little bit. And I do think she brought into it like her own insecurities and all that. And I just don't think, I'm not sure what she expected to get out of the reality. I mean, I guess it was, to get over Ray, but the whole point of that show is to fall in love, or, that kind of thing. And we know that's not really the case. Most of these people will go on these shows, but it wasn't even just about, hey, getting more followers on her, because that's related to her career, but also to get over a person. But if you're trying to get over that person, you'll have to be open to other people. She wasn't trying to get over anybody. She was just totally coming in there defensive, just really started off that way. And it didn't help that the producer, Lauren, had that whole thing with the guy looked at her and turned around. And
yeah, right.
That was like, and that was playing. Really? I mean, that's just really like, even if she, even with high self-esteem or whatever, or the fact that she didn't always have it, for that to happen on national TV, right? Boom, I'm going to do this, drop this, and then act like, why is she like this? It's like, dude, you started off like that. We right. Drama. Yeah, drama is about to hurt feelings, because it's national TV. It's one thing if someone did that, and it's going to be on TV forever. Right.
Exactly.
You're right.
And so on that kind of things, and I know I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry.
It's I just want to jump in, because I want to say that I am the opposite. So I don't love all reality TV, but I do generally watch The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. I am in a Facebook group that talks about it and all the episodes. I'm not like active participant, but I follow it and I watch. I'm not at the point of the bracket and all that, but I do watch those. So I think for me, and I don't know if you saw the show Unreal.
Yes, I was just gonna say this is so much like Unreal.
Right. And I think from the perspective of portraying what it's like to be on a show like that, I'm gonna give them accuracy. I'm not saying that that's not what happens. What I think bothered me the most, and Staci touched on a little bit, was her character and her overall attitude for so much of the story. I felt like it took her a long time to find her groove in a way that seems odd for having agreed to such an experience. I was glad when they finally had a conversation where she said to Lauren, look, stop playing this like it's you out here, because our experiences of life are different.
Right.
And what would work for you in real life is really like sabotaging me. But I also blame her, because at the beginning she abdicated so much of the process to Lauren. You pick the guys, you pick who stays, you just go through the list, you whatever. That I think she set that up to the point where Lauren was like, well, darn, I have to do all the work. I'm gonna just do it my way. I feel like the core of it was that I had a hard time liking B just like the people on the show did. But my hard time liking her started before she went on the show in some ways. And so I think it was a little tougher for me. I will say, for realism, for what it might be like to be on a show and to go through that process, I will say I think that was probably the most accurate and engaging part of it, was the description of the process. I think it was just so painful. I didn't, like Staci said, I just couldn't watch.
Marcie, help clarify or help me. You were just saying that you disliked her from the beginning. What was it that you did not like about B?
Maybe not from the beginning. And I feel like it was the trope of it all that bothered me the most, in that you have this plus size woman who has found her space in the world, who is living the life that in some ways that she says she wants. But behind it all, there is always some sort of trauma / baggage that keeps her from being her full self. And that, I think, is what bothered me, is because she couldn't be whole and full at the beginning to go through this process. She had to have the Ray who was the love of her life that was really a douche. She had to have, I think that was the part that bothered me more than anything else. They could not let her stay that person. There had to be all of this other stuff behind it that minimized her. That's, I think, what bothered me the most. And I think that's the part where I was like, okay, all right. And then I think after that, they just took that trope all the way down the rabbit hole of all these breakdowns and all these whatever. They stripped her of the thing that made us want to root for her in the first place. They could not take her into the show as the person that she was. That somehow they had to minimize all of that to bring her through this, that she couldn't have been a whole person through the journey. She had to be broken and somehow hobbled together. And that is what pisses me off, because not every plus size woman is that narrative. And not every plus size woman is uncomfortable in the space she's in. Not every plus size woman goes into situations with all those insecurities in the back of their head. And not every plus size woman is surprised that a man is attracted to her, regardless of what he looks like. So I think there were a lot of tropes in there and a lot of stereotypes and a lot of places where there was opportunity to present a different narrative. And instead of doing so, the book fell on every common stereotype about plus size women in a way that I felt this book was going to be empowering in a different way. And that, I think, is what made it harder for me to get through it, is because I kept watching it time after time after time. They were falling back, and it'd be some memory. I didn't go to the prom. My first kiss was. Every plus size woman's past and history is not that narrative, but that's what we see in most books. We see this concept that, oh, he can't possibly be interested in me. Lies. She's pretty. She has really nice style. She's a boss. Why would not he be attracted to her?
You see that in movies often.
And this book, when I read it, thought I was going to get something different. And when I didn't, and when it went so deep into every one of those stereotypes, it was a lot for me.
So this brings up a good point for this particular group here. Some of us as plus size women are at a different point in our journey of acceptance of who we are, no matter what size we are, as women, period, not just even plus size women, because let's face it, in American society, we get just ripped apart for looks for no reason. It just boggles my mind sometimes why we go through all of this just for our outside appearance and how we seem to somebody. But some plus size women are at a different point in their journey, or they even never went through this or had to go through any of this. And so maybe we're not, even though we are plus size and maybe we had high hopes for this book, maybe we were not the target audience for this book.
Well, I think that might be part of it, is that, because I do understand different plus size women have different experiences. And so I can understand some of the things she was talking about in the book, but also at the same time, you see it so often in everything about plus size women that even if you aren't, or you are or you aren't, something different, can we do something a little bit different? And I think that's just really what it is. I mean, even if, like Marcie says, you see this so often that even if it's you, I would think you still be tired of it, because there's no other view of a plus size woman. There's often no other view than just what she has in the book. I mean, I'm just trying, like what you said about not books, but also TV. And it's like, what recently have we seen, or what's out there that truly is different when it comes to how plus size woman is viewed? And for whatever reason, Drop Dead Gorgeous came to mind. But the only reason she acted like that is because she's a thin woman who's brought back into the body of a big woman. So she had to, now it's like,
it was like her mindset was already past this point of insecurity. She never had that because she was always a thin woman. Yeah. So she's approaching it through a whole different
lens. And then it's like, but that's kind of rude that the only reason that she's like that is because she was a thin woman to begin with, that died and came back as a bigger woman. And
wow.
And I'm gonna be honest, the best representation I've ever seen of plus size women in their own space and occupying their own space, and even then they had a few pieces of baggage, but not all of them, was like in an urban romance series that I read. And I don't even remember who wrote it, except that every time I see one, I try to read it because I know that's where her characters are coming from. And I wish I could remember the author so that I could tell you guys. But it was urban, and it came from, my grandma was big boned. All the women in my family big boned. This how we built. This how we rolling. So we claim that from the cradle, basically. But I think you're right that in societal depiction, the only way that a plus size woman can possibly be okay with being plus size is she was skinny at some other point, or has a skinny mindset, or is trapped in this body somehow, or has the opportunity or potential to get out of that body at some point. It's never that being in that body at that moment that the woman is content to be in that space. I am plus size. I have never, except for when I was a very young child, I've never been skinny. And so this is always the body I've inhabited and the space that I occupy. I do the things that I do for health, and I do the things that I do to maintain the longevity of my life. But the honest truth is, I'm not ever going to be a size 6. My head is too big.
Wow. She said her head is too big.
My head is too big. Yeah. My body will be like, so this isn't not that. Okay. But so I'm always been in this space. And so I occupy this space from a place of security. And I think that that's something I don't often see. And I'm not escaping this body to be in someone else's skinnier body to live the life that I wanted to live. I'm gonna go back to it. Staci didn't hit on it, but I was plus size and Black in Paris, and I did not feel unseen. I did not wear dark clothes, and I did not feel people's eyes staring at me in disdain. Okay, I don't
didn't feel that way either.
Yeah, no, none of that. It was great. It was honestly great. There are pictures of us in a lot of those bus trip people's vacation albums, because I don't know if it was that we were plus size or Black or American or what, but we're in a lot of people's photos from from the Arc de Triomphe, and I'm good with that. And so I think that there's something to be said for occupying the space you're in and being comfortable there. And I wanted to smack her a couple of times.
I was
So
going to jump in. I'm
yeah,
sorry. Go ahead,
jump
Yvonne.
jump in, Pam, jump in.
Look, I was sitting here. I was trying to come up with examples of things that I like that have been portrayed on TV, but kind of still falls into the stereotype. To be honest, growing up, I guess the way my parents raised me, I've always been taught to love who I am, the size that I am. I have pictures of myself standing at the bus stop at my dad's bus stop, wearing these cute little clothes. But I was a really plus size girl growing up. So that's all I knew. And my sisters were smaller, but I always loved myself. I never looked at myself like I was, an ugly person, or I wasn't. I was always very confident in who I was as a person. But I was just thinking about a couple of examples where it also made me feel kind of good to be plus size even the more. When I was in Haiti, I remember when I was walking around. Now, Americans in Haiti are already looked at as like amazing people. They look at it as almost as royalty to a degree. I remember that we were walking around with all of the different people I was with, and all of the Haitian men kept coming and talking to me. And I was thinking to myself, maybe it had to do with my hair, the way my hair was or whatever. But one guy finally just said it. He's like, "You are just so beautiful. You're full. You're this, your thighs." And I started laughing. I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it's who I am." And well, thank you. I just saw how they were paying attention to me more than my smaller counterparts that were next to me. So I thought that was kind of cool. The other thing I thought about in terms of movie examples, I don't know if you all have ever seen the movie Just Right with Queen Latifah and Khan.
Yes.
Love that
Mhm.
movie. Writing a book based on it. How about
I am
that?
Queen Latifah. Thank you. I just wanted to let you know.
Yes.
I just love that. I mean, I love the movie because, the whole time, to be honest, as the big basketball star, he always looked, it seemed like he looked at most of the smaller women, or at least that's how it was portrayed per se in the movie. But in the end, he was with Queen Latifah, and she was a beautiful, beautiful plus size woman. Nothing wrong with Paula Patton, but totally different. I mean, just awesome. And so I look at myself in that way, that inside and out, I'm Queen Latifah. I'm beautiful plus size. Y'all might not like the way I look, but dang it, I look good and I look like Queen Latifah. That's just my
And
Well,
I totally love that movie too. And I
so-
can see that could have happened here, but it didn't. And I see what Marcie was saying about, or it might have been Staci. One of you were saying about how it started off that maybe she was could have been a little more assertive and assured, because to me, I thought that's what she was in the beginning. That was the whole point of her being this influencer and talking junk about the show in the beginning. So I thought
bait
she
and
was
switch.
I thought she was going to keep that, but she didn't keep that. When she got on the show.
Nah.
Yeah, gotcha.
No, I think that's the bait and switch there in that case. It was just, I thought we're getting someone who was confident. And I mean, there are times when you don't feel confident or whatever. So, I mean, I understand that, but it's like the whole time she's second guessing herself all the time. And now I'm thinking, how was she ever a plus size blogger or Instagram thing? Because how can she act? That is how she made her living. If how she's acting on the show, at least to me so far, I just don't see that at that point, like that as really being something that could actually happen. I mean, I thought I was going to go in admiring her and everything. And so far, like I said, I have not liked any of her, except for the last one that's chosen by her friend. Those couple of dates, I'm like, okay, we're actually seeing more of, I guess, who she is, maybe. But at the same time, still, so far I just have mixed feelings about her as a character at this point.
That is a great mention of Marin as a best friend, as someone who tried to come in and restore order and remind her of who she was, who could look at her and see what she couldn't see because how deep she was in her own head. And I think that was probably one of the more refreshing.
Yeah.
The
Good
parent
point.
scene with her and her stepfather and her mother, and
Yes.
that was, I mean, I guess as good as a family scene could get. But I do think that having Marin come in at that point, particularly, but along the whole journey, I think was an interesting and refreshing counterpoint to remind me of who I thought she was. I think that gave me hope that I might see that person, but it was,
You're not making me have good feelings about this, Marcie.
I hit the lottery on best friend, so I have no qualms. But I just, in this case, I really feel like,
No, I'm not talking about the book, not the
oh,
friend.
I'm sorry, Staci, I don't know. Oh, whatever. But my point here is, I'm sorry, Staci, that you couldn't tell by now. If you want to stay in it, go ahead, friend.
I'm going to stay in it just
Go
to
ahead and
see.
stay in
I'm going
it.
to power through. And
I
it'll be
think
like
that,
2 weeks later. How far have you got halfway through?
Right.
So
I feel like I want to spoil it for Staci at some point, but I'm trying
No,
not
go
to.
ahead. I
Yeah,
mean,
go
for real.
ahead.
I mean,
No,
because
I'm
this is
not.
the whole part of the podcast.
I'm not gonna do it for the podcast.
Well, you've been largely silent though, and I would like to
Me?
hear. Yeah,
Yes, you
like
have.
I would like to hear your
I'm the
summary.
host. I'm the
But-
host. I'm supposed to be fielding.
But I also think I would like to hear your perspective as well, just because the panel kind of monopolized that whole, and I don't know that you got to give your star rating or to kind of give us your elevator view of the story.
Okay, so I feel two different ways because there's kind of two different sections to me to this story, or two different topics, I guess. There's the one of the whole bachelor kind of thing, that whole thing. And then there's the whole B and her being plus size and representation. To me, they're almost kind of like two different books in a sense for me. There's this one book that I totally loved as far as the reality show representation kind of thing. It's like a little bit of a guilty pleasure, but for me, I was an Unreal fan. I loved that show, Unreal. I'm not a Bachelor fan. I've never watched The Bachelor. I did watch a few episodes of The Bachelorette when they had the first Black woman on there, because I'm a Black woman. But there is something about that whole, we're on a show and we're looking to find love and it's supposed to be quote unquote reality. The single woman in me kind of has this little, I like to see people get together and all this other kind of stuff, even though to a certain extent of it is scripted or whatever. But as far as the actual show antics that they showed in One to Watch, and as far as all of that, it made me think about that show Unreal, and I loved that show. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're kind of playing this whole little messy drama out just like they played it out in Unreal. And you saw the behind the scenes, of course, because B is behind the scenes. I love that part. Now, the other part about B as a plus size person, I didn't like that story, but a certain part of me maybe understood that I am not every plus size woman. And at least they're just saying this is B's journey and this is not every plus size woman's journey, except for sometimes a book can end up being representative and blah, blah, blah. So that's that, I digress there. This story, I didn't like it because I didn't like that she lost her power. She had gained her power because obviously earlier in life at some point, she just didn't feel quote unquote beautiful. They kind of get into that whole reasoning behind that a little bit. But again, as Pam said, they didn't really get into the whys of why she felt insecure at some point, why she felt she couldn't feel like holding on to her self-esteem. They could have gotten into that more. It just felt almost unnatural. And maybe it's just because I've never been on a reality show. I never want to go on one, but the pressure there to just basically digress and lose, whatever self-esteem you have, that may have been something that just did her in. Although we don't really know that either from the words on the page. We just know that at one point she was holding her own. She had her own blog. She was doing her own fashion modeling kind of thing. It was really cool. And then she gets on this reality show and she just loses all of that self-esteem, all of that wanting to represent a plus size woman who was really in for it. Now, the other side of that, so I didn't like B. Let's just basically say that. But on the other side of that, it is kind of representative of what plus size women go through. I don't think B is a good representation of a plus size woman, especially not one who has supposedly embraced being plus size in a skinny world. As a plus size woman, I've heard those comments. I've been fetishized for being plus size. I've been fetishized for being Black. Those things happen. Those things are representative, and those things are as ugly as they are in this book. On that little side of it, I feel like showing that and showing how ugly that is and how wrong that is, that was a positive as far as that.
I see that.
You see what I'm saying?
I can see that perspective and to show the reality of what that's like. Okay.
And I like the fact that Nash and Cooper ended up. I love her family. How about that, y'all? I loved her family. So
that was great.
Yeah.
The fact that her family went to bat for her and left Nash and Cooper out there in the cow pasture walking through crap. I was like, yes, I'm all for it. That's what should happen to you for calling her a cow. You shouldn't have done it. I guess you would really have to just create a whole world to actually show all of that kind of negativity at one time happening to a person. That and this, a reality show where she meets 25 men or how many ever men it was. Otherwise, and speaking as a writer, there's no way I'm going to be able to handle all of that in one book. That's a lot of oppression to handle in one book.
Could you ever see this actually happening?
In terms,
yeah.
But yeah, see, that's what I want to. That's what I want to know, because again, I don't watch The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. But is it true that they haven't had an actual plus size bachelorette yet? Right? They've all been small.
No plus size bachelorettes. No plus size bachelors.
No plus size bachelors.
Anybody,
right? No plus size anybody. So it's like, that is like the one thing. I mean, they've had one Black woman to be a bachelorette. I don't know if they've had any more since then. And I think this past season or a couple of seasons ago, they had one Black man be a bachelor, right?
Yeah, that was Matt.
Yeah. So for them to even it took, how many seasons of this has it been on this show before they've had a Black person be like the lead person on the show?
And I would also like to say,
forever for them to get a
and for it to be a real plus size woman, not size 12
exactly.
or size 10,
that's not
who's bigger than the standard demo size garments that dressmakers make, and so I think that's the other thing, is to get a real representative plus size person. But if we saw that, I would also like to take away the shock and awe factor of it, and just tell the men, this is who you're gonna meet. Come if you want. I mean,
and see, I think that was part of the problem with this particular book, is that they did not tell the men that they're going to meet a plus size person. And so, I know they did that for drama and all that kind of stuff, but that part of the plot took away from the empowerment that it could have had.
Right. There's probably a factor of people who would say that it shouldn't matter, that you shouldn't have to quote unquote warn people that someone is plus size. But I'm going to say that as a plus size person living in our society, especially American society, that it is still a factor. It is still important to some people. And so it is something that I include in descriptions of myself. And it is something, if you're not meeting me in person, I do that for both of us to be clear about who we're meeting and about expectations, because it is something that's important in this society. So I feel like in this engagement, I think that would have also taken a layer out of it, because the question of who are they coming to meet and what they were expecting versus who they met, I feel like set up a whole lot of the uncomfortable dynamic that really impacted B. Had it been known and the suitors had been people who knew who they were meeting and had a preference for it, I feel like the whole process would have been different. Or not even preference, but didn't have an opinion either way. We're willing to know that. I think it was blindsiding them, expecting everybody to adjust and then expecting her to be able to adapt to their experience in addition to hers, I think was a lot.
And the other thing that kind of brings up is, so what happened with that was she kind of imploded. And so then the main squeeze guys, the ones who we think or who are portrayed of as actually loving her or actually liking her, were the ones to actually fuel her with the self-esteem, which I don't like that either, because we all are pretty much independent, self-made women here, and we don't need validation to feel as beautiful as we know we are when we look in the mirror.
To quote Cat Williams, it's called self-esteem,
Yes.
esteem of self.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And here we had, in this book, we had Luke the Frenchman, who was actually forcing B to feel as beautiful as, we think that she is, and to feel as deserving as we already knew that she should have felt. And, Sam, the Michael B. Jordan lookalike, propping her up and saying, yes, I do like you. Yes, a man can like you and can actually genuinely like you. And then we have Asher trying to say, listen, what's the truth of you being here? Actually look into yourself. And I hate that we had to have the guys do that for her.
Wow.
Because at a certain point, with her being this Instagram influencer or this influencer, that she should have come in with that already. But I didn't write the book. And this is not the story that was told. This is not the story that was to be told. The story is out there. That's kind of how I feel about it. I have a split mind about it. It does some good plot stuff, but what it does for plus size women, I think, is a little bit of a disservice.
Agree.
Let's talk about, so one time somebody mentioned fashion. I noticed she was wearing a lot of these outfits that I was like, oh my gosh, if I just had that in my closet, if it fit me like they're saying it fit her, because she mentions that she is apple shaped. And that is me. I am so apple shaped. And I was like, I want these clothes. It also kind of brought me back to a book who does plus size Instagram influencer a little bit better. And that's Big Summer by Jennifer Weiner, which I've talked about on here. But one thing that it reminds me of is that she also was doing fashion and talking about clothes in that book. And Jennifer Weiner was saying that people were actually writing her, or women were actually writing her, wanting to know where were these clothes coming from? And Jennifer was like, this is fiction, y'all. And it kind of made me think about that too, because a lot of us, maybe not necessarily I'm the one, but a lot of us are fashion forward in this group. So what did we think about the fact that she was, getting dressed up in these clothes? Did we care?
I think it reminded me of just some of the things that we talk about or look at on the day-to-day of people who are out there doing their blogs, plus size women doing their blogs and showing off and showing different styles and things on. So really that's what's happening now. I may not be one that really captures it in terms of going out there, I want to wear what she has, or I don't spend time doing it very much, but at least I know it represents what's out there or what people are doing, or plus size people are doing. So it's present, I think, in our media is happening.
I think for me, that was probably the closest to something that I could visualize, because when I realized she was living in Cali, when it talked about being, apple shaped, when it talked about her style and her taste, it immediately made me think of Kelly Brown, and I Get Dressed, and her blog, because she is a plus size blogger, yes, but also a fashion blogger who blogs about fashion in general, and then has the concept of that fashion is fashion, and it's fashion no matter what body you put it on. And so
Yeah.
I think to me, that was something that was nice. It was relatable to someone that I knew in the blogger space. And I think that part for me rang true with the sense of authenticity, of understanding what fashion is, what good fashion is, and then being able to respect it when you see it, not just whether it's on you or on anyone else. So I will say it did definitely put me in the mind of Kelly B.
Yeah.
The
Continue.
fashion part of it too. I like the fact that they talked about, her shape, and it wasn't a full like hourglass plus size.
Yes.
And that she talked about, things that she liked to wear, fit and flattered kind of a thing. And they talk about it in a different, like when she's getting ready for this type of event and what she wore and all that kind of stuff. And I appreciated that. I'm not so much of a fashion person that when she named designers and stuff, I was like, who? But I like the fact that she talked about wearing her swimsuit, and she's like, you wear swimsuits all the time, but she talked about, but I choose them. But I'm glad they found a person who understood about plus size. Got someone who picked. She never, at least at this point, I haven't heard her complain about what was chosen for at all, because whoever they chose, the stylist, found things that would look nice, that was representative of her style. And so it looked to me, I know it looked like, but it sounds to me that whoever they chose actually did research on her. So she didn't complain to me, not once, about what was selected, except for the whole in her head about the swimsuit part of it. But other than that, she seemed like what was doing her clothing was it wardrobe Allison was on the money on that.
Yeah, she was. This is not really a spoiler, but she continues to be. She's like the one bright shining star of this whole thing.
One thing that kind of threw me for the whole storyline, if she's a fashion blogger and all that, I mean, Allison did a great job, but it's like I would have thought she would have wanted more input about what she was wearing.
Yep.
Because she never, to me, it didn't seem like she was a fashion blogger at all from this
right
whole,
like she liked an outfit, she recognized the name, sometimes you would hear her say it was beautiful, she would like accept or reject what Allison had. But I agree with you, Staci, but I think that was part to me of her entire abdication of the process to all those other people. The same way she told Lauren, you choose the men, she was like, Allison, you choose the outfits. I agree. I think that's part to me of the same symptom that I saw in the storyline, which is when she abdicated the entire experience to other people. I mean, Marin chose her best matches for dates. Like I felt like maybe that was the part that bothered me the most.
Maybe because it looked like
she stood back and let everyone else decide this entire process until so far into the story.
Yeah.
And maybe that's it, because it's like, if you're going to be a fashion blogger, and the whole point of this was to kind of get more, get noticed, get more publicity and all that, I'll be having a whole lot more say in what you're choosing for what I'm wearing and all that, so that I can integrate this into my career. This is what the main reason for her to go, besides getting over old douche guy.
Right.
But that was one of the things. I mean, I did like the fact that they did go talk about how she looked, and her fashion choices weren't just horrible. But also I did understand, like when she was talking about one of the dates she went on, and it was like this little boutique, and fitting into, going there. And I mean, understood that perfectly, because I travel a lot. And then say people, oh, let's go here. And I'm like, geez, I'm going to have to walk through here sideways, just because of small little things that she brought that up. And I could understand that. But at the same time, it's like, well, if you want this money, I'm going to have to go in here sideways, because if that's where we're going to sit, I'm still going to this place I wanted to eat there. I'm not sure I'm trying to remember how she felt about going that, but I understand, like, there are perspectives that I could tell that this was a plus size author, was because of that. Because I don't think a lot of people do think about those kind of things. Like if I'm in a little hole in the wall, that sometimes hole walls means there's not a lot of space in there. And I do see that, yes, it is her perspective of plus size. And I guess that's probably why, at least for now, I'm giving her a 3 until I read the rest of it. It's like, she's looks like she's pretty much going by her perspective alone in all of this. But I want some authors that have a different perspective to get some time. I have a different type of heroine.
Right. Right.
Okay.
It's like
That makes
like
sense.
you know that this person that's writing this is plus size because they're thinking, because they do mention some things that as a plus size person, yes, this is real to my situation. The problem is that we've got one plus size person here, and this plus size person does not have, well, one plus size woman, and this plus size woman does not have the same strength, is the word that actually came to mind when Marcie was first talking about but strength to deal with coming across something that's going to negatively impact you as a plus size person, like the booth kind of situation. Just gonna be like, I'm just gonna go in here and just whatever. Either you're gonna accommodate me or you're not, because I'm gonna eat at this place, right? That's not what happened, right? It was more like a shrinking back, let me deal, a kind of thing. And the whole hot tub on the yacht, that whole mess of a scene there when, she's first with the guys, I was like, this were me. Some of the same stuff would have been running through my head, yes. But how she dealt with it would not have been how I dealt with it. I would have been a lot stronger than that. And I think, and I don't even I barely show my face on Instagram. You're not going to see the body. I barely show my face on Instagram. So I felt like how she coped was not authentic to a plus size person, but the stuff that she went through that she thought about was authentic to a plus size person.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you that.
Is that me?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, do we get that? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're kind of coming to the end of this here. So I know Marcie's already rated it a 1 star. Staci has rated a 3 star at this point. Pam, what is your rating for it? So it's on a scale of 1 to 5. 1, I didn't like it. 5, it was amazing.
I would not say it was amazing at this point, but I don't know. I would give it maybe a 3.5, just because in terms of the entertainment factor, because to me, it's just kind of like watching some of these crappy So, and I'm sometimes in them. So I would go with a 3.5 ish. Yeah.
Okay. And because I was asked to give a rating earlier, I will give a rating on this one too. So, like I said, I'm split minds of this. The plus size story of this, I'm giving it a 2, which is a good reading for It Was Okay. For the, like Pam said, the whole reality show kind of drama, kind of messy stuff, I'm giving that 3.5 for that. So I guess I'm kind of around 2.53, I guess, if we average that together. The book to me was okay. It could have done a lot better. But then why I'm giving it kind of a middle rating is it's not a book necessarily, I think, for me. And I don't think it's necessarily a book, I should say, that speaks to me as a plus size woman, because I'm not this target audience.
Please don't make it into a movie.
Yeah, no, just they already made my plus size woman movie. That was Just Right. I'm with you on that, Pam. I love Just Right, and I love it because it's like, and it's really not even about her being plus size necessarily. That's just one factor. This is not one that I want to see made into a movie. What I would actually really like to see is I would like to see a plus size bachelorette. A real plus size bachelorette that is a little bit further along in her journey of acceptance on the show The Bachelorette. Now I would watch that.
I would too.
That's my thing. So thank you, ladies, for coming on. Oh my gosh, this was such a spirited discussion. I love the discussion, y'all. Thanks for bearing with me throughout all of this. I love it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Please subscribe to Nerdy Romantics podcast wherever you get your podcasts to be notified anytime a new episode drops. And if you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. The links are in my show notes at ymnelson.com, along with a lot of other links for books and other items that we talked about on our show. And if you really like what you're hearing, click the Buy Me a Coffee button while you're there to support us. Thank you for listening.